different things with
That's
it.
cool.
But I like it because I sing a lot in E flat. E flat's a great key for me. I love E flat. I play piano a lot. I've played piano all my life. E flat's my favorite piano key. It just sounds good. And I found out, I used to play a lot. I played church organ too, and a lot of hymns are written in E flat because the male vocal can sing the lead and be in a comfortable area, and the females can sing lead comfortably too. So a lot of hymns are in E flat because both men and women can sing the melody. Because sometimes you get it up here, if a woman sings it's way too high, and the man sings it's perfect. But E flat is like a universal key, and on the piano it sounds so good because the octave E there is just not muddy. It's not too low, not too high. It just sounds, to my ear, it sounds so good.
Cool.
Just perfect. So it's kind of goofy how different keys have different timbres or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
and fit different things. And talk about songwriting this morning too, and people don't think about it, but I write a lot of songs. You can sing, men or women can sing it. Dale Ann Bradley's recorded a lot, but then a lot of, I try to. It's interesting because if I'm singing a song in G, if I'm comfortable singing it in G, if I'm going to pitch it to a female singer, you probably need to move it in the 4 or 5 chord because that's where it's going to fall for the female singer. So if you're in G, that would be either C or D, the 4 or 5 chord.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I will demo it for a female instead of G where I'm singing it. I'll do it in C or D, so they are comfortable singing it. So
do
that's
a
just
lot
a
of
little
stuff
thing
in
about
D.
when you write a song and try to
Which
pitch
is-
it. Yeah, bring chairs. There's plenty of chairs over there. Bring them over or whatever. And so anyway, that's kind of a side trip, but it's something to think about if you're pitching songs to different artists. You try to get it in their range. So anything. So, welcome everybody. Beautiful morning, ain't it?
It sure is.
Good to be alive.
Amen.
So anyway, we were talking about broken in friends and worn out shoes, but like I said, that took 30 years to write, come up with that one line. And once I got the first line, all the rest of it kind of fell in place. Because one of the most important things is everybody has a good hook. Hey, I got a good hook for you. I got a good hook. But to take that hook, and you can write probably 10 songs with the same hook, but you got to find which is the most effective. What do I want to write about? What's that song about? I'll sing you a new one just to kind of get started here too. And I wrote this. I don't know if you know Scott Jackson. He used to be a dentist over there in Ocala. And plays some songs. He moved up to Georgia now. But he said, I got this line. He says to me, 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4. I said, well, that's kind of stupid. That just sounds kind of stupid. But he said, when you're kids, that's the game you play. 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4, And then, but I never, first when I heard it, I said, I don't know if you can make a song out of that. That's kind of stupid. And but I said, that'd be kind of an interesting first line because you would never hear that, And I said, well, what if I write about, when we were all kids, and I start writing down things as when I was a kid, like we'd cut hickory sticks and we'd play, make them into rifles and play war with the hickory sticks, or, we watched Superman, Annie Oakley, all those old TV shows, or John Wayne, or we played baseball. We were always the Dodgers or the Braves, or, I write all this stuff down. And then I said, well, this is what, and then sometimes you come up with, and I wrote a line in there. It said we had barefoot summers. I thought about barefoot summers. I said we spent all summer barefoot. And I said, well, barefoot summers. And I said, well, how about barefoot summers and dirt road dreams? And so all of a sudden I go like, aha, I might have something here. And that sings pretty good, barefoot summers and dirt road dreams. You have to, it sings good. And that's really important, that the meter, the words, they call it prosody, it has to be a perfect marriage between the melody and the lyric. You don't want to put two syllables over one note, you know, that kind of, now Joni Mitchell get away with that stuff, but I don't. So, you know, where you sing lots of words over one or two notes, and you can break that rule, but I really try to make it easy to sing. So when I was doing that, I came up with, I was just new. You know, 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4. You know, just try to get a melody. One potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4. Cut hickory sticks to fight our war. We were braves and dodgers, kings and queens, and cowboys on the silver screen. So that's where you started out. You just had kind of, and you want to rhyme it at the end, but the rhymes at the end don't matter that much. And I'll talk about rhyming. I always talk about it, really, really important, because rhyming is exact rhyme. Perfect rhymes aren't always the best because they're predictable. You go, well, we fell in love, and it fits like a glove, and we were like a turtle dove, and it go like, oh man, that's bad, you know, just like makes you wanna, you know. So sometimes when you're trying to rhyme a word, you know, you get there. What can I rhyme with this word? Well, you can divide any word into 3 parts, and you can rhyme any one of those 3 parts if the meaning's correct. Okay, so you have the screen. You've got the first consonant, the S, screen. Okay, you've got the middle E, and you got the N on the end. So you don't have to rhyme screen. You can sometimes have it start with an S and have it maybe sane, you know, screen, something is sane. And people, if it has the right meaning, if the meaning is there, people won't even notice that it doesn't rhyme. Yeah. I wrote a song with Becky Buller called Cotton Town. It's one of the verses is tobacco barns and cotton bales, lightning bugs and whippoorwills, good old boys and southern belles here in Cotton Town. None of those words rhyme. You have cotton bales, and then whippoorwills and southern belles. But they all have that, you know, bales has the B and the L, whippoorwill has the L on the end, so the L's line up. And the last one, bells, well, it has the B lines up with bales and the L's at the end, but the middle don't match up. But it, you know, when you start out singing it, if you sing it, people will not notice that they don't rhyme. Yeah. Because it has at least one of those 3 elements when you're, and all of a sudden, instead of 10 words, now you've got 100 words that you can put in there. And you can match your meaning then. You want that.
Because it all goes together.
People will always forgive you if you have the right emotion or the meaning. If the meaning is there and it makes perfect sense, they don't care if it rhymes. You know, you don't want to get too wild and crazy, but I mean, it will work that way. So anyway, where were we at on Cowboys on the Silver Screen? We were hide and seek and kick the can. Annie Oakley and Superman won all the games, saved all the girls. Way back when we ruled the world. We were cane poles at the old mill pond till Mama turned the porch light on. We were mud and grass stains on our jeans, barefoot summers and dirt road dreams. We were barefoot summers and dirt road dreams. We were cheap guitars and a tire. We were cheap guitars and a tire swing. and endless songs we loved to sing. We were shooting stars and lifelong friends, with days we thought would never end. We were cane poles at the old mill pond, till Mama turned the porch light on. We were mud and grass stains on our jeans, barefoot summers and dirt road dreams. We were barefoot summers and dirt road dreams. And I always like to bring a song back into the current. See, that's all nostalgic, right?
Yes.
So now I'm going to bring it into the current. I said I will need to bring it up to current, up to date. So the last verse has to be about something today. You know, so I'm thinking, now it's 5 a.m. and coffee black. We hit the ground running and don't look back. But in my mind I press rewind, and it takes me back to simpler times, when we were cane poles at the old mill pond, till Mama turned the porch light on. We were mud and grass stains on our jeans, barefoot summers and dirt road dreams. We were barefoot summers and dirt road dreams.
It's awesome. Lord, yeah.
I think
Wow.
somebody will record that eventually,
Yeah.
but nobody's recorded that yet. But that's my thought process, and a lot of the thought process gets there to where, and anybody can do it. You just, you know, I think people tend to make it too complicated. I always say, write what you see, and that's it. And just say it like it is. You know, I guess you have an imagination. You go back in your mind, you're seeing these things when you grew up. You know, well, we had a tire swing, we had this, you know, we played these cheap guitars, and then, you know, and then maybe there's a little artistic way of doing things. Like you said, we were shooting stars and lifelong friends, you know. I thought that was kind of a cool line, and I come up with it, and it's like, 'cause, you know, things just kind of, shooting stars, they kind of fade out, they just go up. So I thought, you know, that's just part of the artistic craft of writing a song. And it is a craft. You have to practice it. You got to write a lot of stinkers, but you learn along the way. It's like building guitars. Like I said, if you build one guitar, you probably not turn out great. But your 50th guitar might be pretty good, and you look back on that first guitar, look a piece of junk. But then you build your 100th guitar, and you look at that 50th guitar, and you see all the flaws in your 50th guitar. So. I know I was doing a workshop one time with Paul Kraft. Paul, you know, he's a Hall of Fame songwriter. He said, you know, somebody asked me, he says, "What? Now I've written 3 songs. What do I do next?" He said, "Well, write 3 more." And it's dead serious. Just keep writing and keep honing your craft. Listen to songs. What makes songs great? You know, what makes it a great song? A lot of times it's simplicity. People like to put way too many words in a song. I like to write songs that let the singer breathe and let the listener absorb the words. Another nostalgic song, you know, I think back, I wrote, and I don't know if anybody would ever record this because you have to be probably our age, you know, everybody here is up in age, so, you know, I wrote a song called "I Miss the Boy." You know, I kind of do. You know, you think back and, man, I miss that kid back when I was 10 years old or 12 years old. And you think back, you know, in your mind, you just picture what you used to do back when you were 10 years old. You know, we played in the sandlot. We played sandlot baseball. How many played sandlot baseball, you know? Or football. You get out in the field, you go out, you just put some rocks out for bases or whatever you could find, you know? And I thought, well, that's, you know, so we played baseball on some vacant land, you know, but we were like the World Series in the rocks and sand. That's what we were, you know. So that rhymed right there. I said, you know, we played baseball in the rocks and sand, on some vacant land, World Series in the rocks and sand. He said, I swear that I could hear the fans all cheering for me. You know, and you know, you go like, okay, 2 outs in the 9th inning, and you hit it, and you know, you hit the home run and all that. But that's kind of and that's a universal thing, I think. So, so I was thinking, you know, I don't know if I got the whole melody in my head. We played baseball on some vacant land. World Series in the rocks and sand. I swear that I could hear the fans all cheering for me. We played marbles out behind the school, digging pots with our tennis shoes. I trade my cat's eye shooter and a pearly Forest Steely. We built go-karts from what we could steal, old 2x4s and buggy wheels, then prayed we wouldn't all be killed down Dead Man's Hill. Cane pole I stole this line from the other one. Cane pole at the old mill pond, till Mama turned the porch light on, yelled, ice cream, come and get you some. We couldn't beat that deal. But I miss the boy I was back then. But time moves on like a summer wind. He may be gone, but I hear his voice. I know I can't go back, but I miss the boy. So that's kind of brings you back, you know, things like that. And so, like I said, I write this stuff down. I picture like, okay, what am I doing today? When we were 10, what did we all do? Well, we went, it cost me only 7 cents for a box of candy cigarettes. I'd pretend they were a pack of Kents and smoke them like my dad. Yeah, we had fun and laughed a lot, and I wish I could turn back the clock, relive the time that time's forgot. It doesn't work like that. But I miss the boy I was back then. But time moves on just like a summer wind. Though he might be gone, I still hear his voice. I know I can't go back, but I miss the boy.
Oh, great.
So I don't know if anybody ever recorded that song, but I like it. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
You know, it just brings me back to the days when you're a kid. So I think that's really, if you can hit on universal things like that. Any questions? You got questions, and ask them.
Do you come up with the chorus first, or I mean,
You know,
how do
it
you
depends.
actually generate
Yes
this?
and no. Sometimes you do. Sometimes I just have a good first line. Sometimes it's just an idea. You know, I want to write about, or a name. I've taken so many names, like the Ballad of Horton Stubbs. We were talking about. Chris Davis just recorded it. I wrote it 35, 40 years ago, and I was telling everybody, I was driving in southern Ohio, to a little town of Peebles, and there was a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and it had a spray paint, orange spray paint. It said Horton Stubbs Road that way. And I said, Horton Stubbs. I wrote that name. I said, there's a song. And, you know, and then you give them personality. What is this guy a mean guy? Is he a likable guy? Is he, you know, it's like writing a novel, you know, it's a 3-minute movie is what you're writing, you know?
Yeah.
And so I said, well, this guy, you know, I got the idea of, you know, this guy's, he's kind of he lives down at he's down the mining road, and he tells all kind of lies all the time, you know, and you don't know whether he lives this evil life or not, you know, because people think he's like evil, and that's what I wrote. Don't go down that old mining road. Daddy used to say there's a man down there, you know, that lives down there. He's evil in every way. I said there's evil what they preach about and evil to the bone. But Horton Stubbs was a double dose, the worst I've ever known, you know. And so once you get that, that's a verse. I didn't have a chorus, you know. but I had that verse. You know, Stubbs was a rounder. He hailed from New Orleans. And I was just a big-eyed kid with a rebel in faded jeans. You know, I went down there and listened to his stories and captivated him with all, you know, he shot a man in Reno, killed a man in Santa Fe, you know, robbed a bank with Siren Street, you know, in a train in Santa Fe. You've got all these stories, you know, he slept one night in a grand hotel, the next in an old barn stall. And there I was, a big-eyed kid, just listening to it all. Told all these stories. So, and then he drank bootleg from an old fruit jar, stared up at the moon. My eyes got big when he talked about women at the Rusty Nail Saloon. He'd talk about Cincinnati, he'd talk about San Antonio. I learned a lot of things from Horton Stubbs they'd never teach at home. So Chris Davis is recording that right now. But I wrote that 40 years ago, and finally I said, that'd be a perfect song for Chris. And for some reason it came up and I remembered it. So, but that one came from a name, and then the verse came, and then I had to write a chorus.
Right.
You know, we drank bootleg from an old fruit jar and stared up at the moon. Eyes got big when he talked about the women at the Rusty Nail Saloon. So you think of that Rusty Nail Saloon, it just kind of rolls off the tongue, you know. So you play with that or whatever. So that's a good question. You know, some people do write choruses first, and then they build it around it. Everybody has their own style, but I do it every which way, whichever way it's coming.
How about the melody? So when you're developing melody, sometimes you develop the melody first, or you're coming up with the lyrics in a way
Most
first.
of the time I do, but I'll noodle. Sometimes I noodle. I did one that Dwight McCall recorded years ago called West Virginia Ground, which did real well for him. He used to play with J.D. Crowe all the time. And if I remember it, but I had a different line, you know, it was one of those things where I had a melody. This old river town. I wanted to write around something about a river town. The cat, this old river town. You know, I was going this river town. I was trying to write about that, and I had this melody, you know. This old river town. Is it da 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 da, which is a lot of da 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 da. And sometimes I don't like to put a lot of chords, but that always fit. And for weeks I was trying to write something about a river town. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, I sang West Virginia Ground. Where the heck did that come from? It just fit, you know. West Virginia Ground, you know. So I ended up writing a song called West Virginia Ground based on that melody, and it was just an accidental fooling around. Why where did that come from? That's like, my goodness, you know. So he recorded it. I did real well for him and stuff, but that was probably 20 years ago now. Whatever happened to Dwight? I haven't talked to him in a while, but what a great guy he is, a great voice. Sang with J.D. for years, you know. So, but what a great guy too. Other great questions.
How many hours a day do you spend writing?
Well, I write every day. I wrote a song this morning based on what Nick Chandler and I were talking about yesterday. And sometimes I'll spend a half an hour, sometimes 15 minutes. I get up early. My mission statement is to drink coffee and make stuff up. That's what I do. I get up early at 5, 6 o'clock sometimes. And the first thing I do is make coffee, and I sit down at my writing table. And I have stacks of papers. I mean, my wife will tell you, I got reams and reams of songs. I've written over 6,000 songs.
Wow.
So, and a lot of them won't ever get out of the bedroom because they stink. You know, not everybody writes a gem every time, but you got to keep writing. It's like muscle memory. You got to keep doing it. So I usually sit down and I'll take my stack of paper, and sometimes I got half-written songs. Sometimes I got one line. Sometimes I got, like you said, I got a melody on my tape on my phone that I play, and I start and I'll just start noodling. And then, you know, is it a dark song? You know, is it a dark title? Last week, I was with David Stewart down at Anna Maria, and we were in our dark writing mode, you know, kind of, because lonesome songs sell in bluegrass, right?
Yes, they do.
So David goes, well, let's just write a song, low down, lonesome, and blue, you know? And I said, okay, okay, low down, lonesome, and blue. That sings, and so we got a meter, low down, lonesome, and blue, da 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 da, you know. So then I just start chording. How would that sound? You know, it's not happy. So I started doing low down, lonesome, and blue. Don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm low down, lonesome. It's just simple. Don't make it so complicated. You know, that was it. It's like low down, lonesome, and blue. You know, I don't know what I'm gonna do. You know, now something like that. Now I'm low down, lonesome, and blue. So we wrote that and finished that. And he said, and I had notes. I looked through my notes, and I had one. I got a three-word title too, Deep, Dark, and Cold. You know. So I said, well, maybe that one's a little more like. You know, deep, let me see. Deep, dark, and cold. Deep, dark, and cold. She shines like a diamond in her 14-karat gold. She's dark and cold. So that's what, you know, you just kind of try to match it. Okay, that don't sound too good, let me try something else. But you want the feel too, like the, you know, driving. Or do you want it pretty, you know?
If you write a few songs, who and how do you pitch it to somebody? When somebody like you is doing the same thing, they would listen to my songs, they'd listen to yours.
Well, that's just it. You know, you have to start building a resume at some point. You know, and I've been doing this for a long, long time, 50 years now, probably.
Wow.
You know, you have to start somewhere, and you get a few songs. And what I do, I'll run them by my friends. You know, we've got songwriters themselves, so we'll send each other songs. What do you think? You think this? You know, boy, that's good. You know, okay. And so I'll start. You know, but then I go like, okay, who does that sound like? Who could do this song? Because I don't want to pitch a song to Lonesome River Band that doesn't sound like Lonesome River Band. Like they would never do a song like this. But it's a great song, but they wouldn't do it. And even Sammy Sheeler called me up and said, Brink, you got any songs for us? And I had to tell him, I really didn't have anything at the time. I couldn't think of any songs I had that would fit. And I said, Sammy, I don't want to waste your time. I said, I don't really have a song I don't think that you would like. Right this, I said, maybe next week I will, but right now, I said, I don't want to send you something and then have you, you know, just say, hey, why did he send me that song? It's not even in our style. But people get so excited about a good song that they send it to everybody. You know, oh, I'm going to send you this, but you got to. There's a certain amount of credibility that you build up. That when I send a band 2 or 3 songs, one, they know the songs are going to fit what they do. And I usually try to, when they do that, I try to keep track of who's recording, and I say, what are you looking for? I said, if you have a hole to fill, I want to fill it. If you need a gospel song, let me know. I'll send you a gospel song. If you need a dark song, if you need a ballad, if you need a burner, let me know. They'll want burners. They'll want that fast song. But it's funny because ballads stick around. Fast songs will go up the charts, get to #1, and then boom, they're gone. Erase the Miles, who knows that song? Russell Moore. How long has that been around? 30 years? Carl Carl Jackson wrote that song 30 years ago. It's still being played. Ballads have staying power. So, but a lot of bands, they like, you know, the labels want that splash. You know, give me that burner. You know, give me that Fiddlin' Joe. You know, give me that one that's gonna go up the charts and make me some money. You know, but anyway, to answer your question, you just gotta really be really objective. It's hard to be objective when you're writing your own stuff, because everybody, you know, it's like you got to call your own baby ugly. You know, you get done, you think this song's really good, and the more and more I play it, I'm going like, yeah, that's. Luckily, my wife is there, and she'll just say, well, that really sucks. I'll have to make up for my What you have, you know, I always tell songwriters, if you have a trusted friend that will tell you the truth,
Hey, let me call you back in a few
keep them close to you, because you need that. You don't need you don't need the mom and dad review that everything's great. Oh man, that's better than anything on the radio. You know, and then you start sending it out, and people go, it's just not very good. But you're convinced, they've got you convinced that's a good song. But it's hard to be your own editor and your own objective, and say like, well, that song I thought it was good, thought it was going to be good, and it's just not. Nobody's going to ever cut it. Yeah.
Since you're talking about sharing and all that, how do you protect yourself publishing-wise? Do you have your own publishing company?
I have my own publishing company, and it's easy to do that. Depending if you're writing a lot. Now, if you're writing and you're pitching, every label has their own publishing too, so they'll publish it for you if you don't have your own publishing. But you know, there's so little money in it anymore. I don't want to give half of it away if I don't have to. Now, if Alison Krauss wants to record one of my songs and she wants the publishing, it's a business decision. You know, 50% of Alison Krauss is worth 100% of a lot of other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a business. It's a business. So you're making business decisions. The copyright issue is not quite as much as it used to be. When it's misunderstood. When you finish a song, the second you finish the song, you own the copyright. You own your copyright as soon as you take your pen off the paper. Now, you can register that copyright that you already have with the Library of Congress, which you can send in $80, and you can do compilations and all that. You know, there's different ways, but you can send that. You can send that to the Library of Congress. Send your $80 in, and you'll get that. Is now you'll get your copywritten. You're registered. It's registered copyright. What that does, all it does is change the burden of proof. If somebody ever challenges your song, say, hey, you made $1 million on that hit song that Willie Nelson recorded, and I wrote it, and I'm challenging you. Well, if I've registered my copyright, they have to prove they wrote it. If I have not registered my copyright, I have to prove I wrote it. That's a big difference. Legally, that would make a big difference. But I can prove I wrote every song. I keep every scrap of paper, every napkin, every computer-dated lyric.
Yeah. So you don't do that? You don't send it
No,
in?
I haven't registered a copyright in 20 years. And that's based on a lot of attorney recommendations down Nashville. He says it's really almost not necessary anymore because, and plus the fact there's not, unless there's any money in it, probably costs you $50,000 to challenge a song. So unless there's a lot of money involved.
Yeah.
And I always told, well, years ago I said, I wish Willie Nelson would steal one of my songs. I wish he would.
Yeah.
You know, then I'd have, you know.
Yeah.
But so I really don't spend any nanosecond worrying about it. Yeah, nobody's gonna. And if somebody does, so what? You know, it's not gonna. You know, it doesn't bother. I'll write another one. You know, and people get all hung up in the copyright issue, and they stop writing, and they won't send a song out because they're afraid that somebody's gonna steal it. Well, it ain't gonna go anywhere in your bedroom either. You know, you got to throw it out there. And I've thrown songs out, and I don't think I've ever had a song stolen. I don't know. I mean, I've had people add verses to my songs on YouTube, and I don't care for that too much because most of the time they're pretty bad. Beyond the Rain, somebody put it up there and added another verse to Beyond the Rain. It was terrible. And I wrote him, I said, I appreciate you liking the song, put it up, but please don't add a verse. I said if it was great, I'd probably leave it up, but it's just not very good, you know. And it says everything it's going to say, you know. So, anyway, any other questions? Yeah.
Oh, you got a good song. Every time you play it, someone says, man, that's good. Who wrote it? You keep hearing that. So how do you get name recognition? How do you get it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great to know people love your songs, you know, and stuff. And you hear that, and when you start playing it and people want to request it,
Yeah.
I knew Beyond the Rain was a good song. After I wrote that on the steering wheel of my car going 70 mile an hour down the interstate.
Wow.
And I wrote it on a napkin, McDonald's napkin. And I started singing it. And I sang it at a jam set. We used to go down in Columbus, Ohio. They have the Bluegrass shop. Every Saturday morning, there's a jam session in the basement. And Vince Gill used to come over, Larry Stevenson, Dave Evans. They have good jams. And I sang it down there first. And there was a couple the next week came and said, we live 90 miles away, and we had come up that jam last week. Said, we were hoping you were here this week because we wanted to hear that song Beyond the Rain again. We drove 90 miles back this week to hopefully hear that song. And I said, maybe I got something here.
Yeah.
And I sent it to, I sent it to Paul Brewster, who was playing with Ricky Skaggs at the time. And Ricky loved the song and wanted to record it. And he said, Paul came and said, has anybody ever recorded that Beyond the Rain? And I said, well, we had a little band in an old small church in Wisconsin. They were called the Voices of Peace. And they were made 100 CDs to sell to the church to raise some money. And they were friends of mine. I said, well, go ahead and put it on there. I said, well, this is 100 copies at this little church in Berlin, Wisconsin. I said, that's it. He went back to Ricky, and Ricky said, well, it's been recorded. I don't want it. I won't record it if somebody else.
Oh, wow.
He said, well, it's only 100 copies in some little town in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Well, you know, things tend to work out. Well, I sent it to Bill McBee, who was a bass player with Pine Mountain Railroad. And I got a call from Bill, and he goes, Brink, has anybody recorded that Beyond the Rain? I said, no. He said, well, put a brick on it, we want it. That's exactly his words. Put a brick on it, we want it. I said, okay. He says, and we're recording it with the Isaacs.
Oh, wow.
So they went in and recorded it with the Isaacs. And it became the Song of the Year at the Quartet Convention in Louisville, 20,000 people. And it's been in 3 hymnals now, and been recorded probably 100 times. So things happen for a reason, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know if Ricky would have done that with it, you know. But that's you took a feedback when you play a song. I'm watching people too. Are they checking out? Are they checking their phone when I'm singing the song? Are they listening? Are they leaning in? And I'm going like, okay, you know. That's you know, the hard part too is to talk about with songs. A lot of times you'll have a first verse and a chorus are great, but then you got to come up with a second verse. And it's called second verse curse, because the second verse has to be better than the first verse.
Okay.
And what a lot of amateur writers do, they'll try to write that second verse, and they get tired of. They'll just work at it, and they get frustrated, and they'll just finish it, and they'll compromise, and it'll be mediocre. And as soon as it becomes mediocre, that's the kiss of death. Because when you play it, people will love the first verse, and they'll love the chorus. They'll hear that second verse, and you lost them. That people don't know what they're hearing, maybe, but
Yeah.
they know. The public, the listening public, will tell you when you have a good song and when you don't. And you can't put a square peg in a round hole, no matter how good you think that song is. If people don't respond, I mean, I have songs that I love, but I know other people aren't going to identify with them. And I love them, but I know I'm not to pitch them because nobody's going to like them. They're going to hit them like they hit me.
Name recognition, that was my second question. How do you get recognition in, networking?
Yeah, that networking is a big thing. See, you have to songwriting is a business like selling shoes. I mean, one, you've got to get them in the shoe store, you know, and once you get them in the shoe store, maybe they're actually looking for shoes, you know, and then you got to give them the right size shoe. You're not going to get in what style they want. If the guy cowboy comes in, you're not going to show him some wingtips, show him cowboy boots. Like I said, so what you want to do is you want to find people that are looking for songs. They want to come into your store and they want to hear them. And then, like you said, what kind of shoes do this, you know, what kind of songs they want, what kind of shoes they want, like a business. And then, you know, then you present it to them. And like you said, name recognition helps, because once you can build your resume, say, hey, I've had, you know, and I've written now, I'm hoping to have my 40th #1 song this year. Wow. I've written 39 #1 songs.
Wow.
And so you can put that on, look, you know, but still that don't, you know, it don't get you into heaven anymore, as they say, whatever, how many #1 songs you write, but it helps, you know, and I tend to, people don't know the songwriters, you know. Now the bands a lot of times do, you know, the bands here today, a lot of them will be singing my songs, and they'll know who I am, but the general public has no idea who wrote the song. So, and a lot of, you know, if I'm pitching into like Southern gospel, and I've got a lot of Southern gospel recordings and that, but they don't know who I am. So I sent one to, I don't know if you know Karen Peck in New River. She's won Grammy Awards, Dove Awards, you know, and she's real big in the Southern. And I had a couple songs, and I wrote to request, and I always request, I just don't send them. I said, I would love to hear it, but I'm not, you got to toot your own horn a little bit just to get in the door. I said, because a band like, even like a Lonesome River, they'll get 500 songs sent to them in a month. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't have a name they recognize, a lot of times it's just delete, 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 and they never even listen to it. I did a seminar years ago called the Shoebox and the Garbage Bag. This is back before you emailed songs. You always made a tape or a CD and you gave it to the band. And you know, if you had a maybe name or whatever, and you presented it properly and all that, you gave it to the band at the record table. Oh yeah, thank you, we'll listen to it. And if they don't know you and they go like this, they get, as they go on the bus, it's garbage bag, you know. But if they know me, they say, well, I'm talking to them, I said, here, there's two, and you never send more than 2 or 3 songs. 1, 2, or 3 at the most. I'll say, well, I got these 2 songs I think you'll like, you know, and they know me, so they get on the bus, they put it in their shoebox to listen later on. You want to get it in the shoebox. You don't want to get it in the garbage bag. So it's a professional thing. You just approach them on a, you know, you don't want to get in the line where people are buying CDs, you know, when they're selling, you know, t-shirts, bust in there, hey, I want you to listen to this song, you know. Well, that's just common sense, but I see people do it all the time. Or, I remember Steve Gully one time was sitting there, a guy come up, and he had his guitar sitting back there, you know, leaning up against it. He says, hey man, can I use your guitar? I need to sing you a song. And he's got a line of people wanting to buy CDs.
Oh my goodness.
You think he's going to let him play him a song?
No.
Common sense goes a long way in pitching songs. It's just like building relationships. My first, years and years ago, and I was the first one, I think, to do this, because I have a business background. I have a business degree and everything, so I ran businesses for years, and I always go like, okay, I'm going to make a booth. I was the first songwriter to ever have a booth at IBMA, and I had a few songs recorded, but this was back when burning CDs was pretty new, so I had a computer with a CD burner. It took like 15 minutes to burn a dang CD, but I had 2 folders out with names of songs. I think I had 50 or 60 songs, and then I had CDs with MP3s on with headphones, you know, with my wife talked me into putting in the Lysol wipes, you know, so people could clean them off before they put them on. But anyway, so people would, and I had some statement from Darrell Webb and Lou Reed had cut, you know, this on that back, and so people would come up, Joel Lawson come up, he said, what are you? I said, well, I'm a songwriter. He says, Says, well, what's all this? He said, well, I've got songs. I said, I think I got a couple songs you might like. Would you like to listen to one or two? And I opened the book and I knew which ones Joel would probably like. I said, number 35 right here. Sit down right here. I'll toggle it to 35. I want you, man. He put the headphones on, listen. He goes, man, I like that song. I said, I'll tell you what. I've got a CD burner here. You come back in 15 minutes. I'll have it burned for you. So I burned that CD. I put it in a folder, put a label on it, specially burned or especially for Joel Lawson. Put it in a little thing. I made a cover for it with all my information on it. You know, here you go. I hope you listen to it. I hope you cut it. The way he went.
Yeah.
Good or bad, that's the way I operate.
Yeah.
And so eventually people started, you know, you do it here, and pretty soon I didn't have to have the booth anymore. People knew how I was. And but it's a business, and there's nothing wrong with writing as a hobby. I write a lot of songs just for the fun of it. I know nobody's ever going to record, like, I don't think anybody's going to record Granny's Off a Rocker, but Larry Cordell told me we did a bunch of shows last year or whatever, and I'll finish with this and then we can, because they're going to start up here. Yeah. Who's heard that Granny's Off a Rocker? Yeah. But he said this is a certified hit, and I think if somebody put this on an album, I think people would say, I want the album where Granny's song is on. So we'll leave it here. This is just a fun song. Ray Stevens really needs to do it. Granny went crazy after Grandpa died. She'd sit in her rocker just to wring her hands and cry. But then all them new men started coming on. Now Granny's off her rocker and gone. She got Botox and lipo. She's a-wearing skinny jeans, low cuts and high heels, and all that fancy bling. Her brand new Ferrari don't stay at home too long, 'cause Granny's off her rocker and gone. Granny's off her rocker and gone. She's running round all over town from sunset till dawn. Maybe she's crazy. She don't feel alone. Oh, Granny's off her rocker and gone. Now Granny likes her sweet iced tea with a little alcohol. Started line dancing and took up pickleball. Don't need assisted living. She don't need a nursing home, 'cause Granny's off her rocker and gone. Granny's off her rocker and gone. She's running around all over town from sunset till dawn. Maybe she's crazy, but she don't feel alone. Oh, Granny's off her rocker and gone. Well, Granny, she loved Grandpa with all her heart and soul. But now she's living on the younger side of old. And Boot, Scoot, and Boogie has become her favorite song. Granny's off her rocker and gone. Granny's off her rocker and gone. She's running round all over town from sunset till dawn. Maybe she's crazy. She don't feel alone. Oh, Granny's off her rocker and gone. Yeah, well, Granny's off her rocker and gone. There you go. Now you think that if somebody would cut that, they'd have a hit. I think they would.